You can go ahead and start, Chair Sarkozy.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. So I'd like to call to order Escalon Planning Commission meeting for May 19th, 2020 at 7 o'clock. Can we all proceed with a virtual flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we'll go on to roll call.
Chair Sarkozy,
Here.
Vice Chair Castellanos,
Here.
Commissioner Stroman,
Here.
Commissioner Danziger,
Here.
Commissioner Willis.
Here. Okay, great. I just want to note that this meeting is being conducted by teleconference pursuant to the Brown Act waiver provided under Governor Newsom's executive order in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Presentations, we have none, and that's still the case, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is.
Correct.
Next, we have our consent calendar approval. Any comments from commissioners that they've noted from last month's meeting?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of April 14th, 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay.
Motion
Thank
passes
you. Motion
5-0.
passed. Okay, next we have, we'll go through the paperwork here. We have project application 20-721, a conditional use permit and variance located at 1655 Fisk Avenue, Escalon, APN number 225-060. 070-000. Can we start with the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Sarkozy. This is Diana Trejo, Assistant Planner. I'm going to be doing the staff report tonight. This is a project for a variance and conditional use permit related to fencing and accessory structures at 1655 Fisk Avenue. The project site is zoned single-family residential. It's surrounded by single-family residential. There is some high-density residential a little further out and public facilities, the El Portal Middle School across the street. As the project applies to accessory structures and fences, it is CEQA exempt, and if the project's approved, staff will file that notice of exemption at the county recorder's office. Background and overview of the project. The property owners came to City Hall and talked with city staff about a potential project they wanted to do at 1655 Fisk Avenue. They wanted to construct new accessory structures in their rear and side yards. So they provided us a preliminary site plan. It showed the two accessory structures that they were looking to build. The first was a 432 square foot wood storage shed, and the other was a 560 square foot metal carport. The colors for both of the accessory structures were very neutral, very natural. They were looking at tan and white, gray roof. The staff reviewed the site plan. We compared it to the municipal code sections for accessory structures, as well as fencing. There is an existing non-conforming fence along First Street. It's 2.5 feet behind the sidewalk instead of the required 15. In reviewing the site plan, we pulled the property file for the project. We did find a memo from 2004. It was from the city building official at the time. The fence was replaced at that time, and the building official did allow it. They used a policy. It's typically applied to non-conforming uses and buildings that they may continue. It's not typically applied to fences. It's more buildings, like if a detached garage burns down, the people are able to replace it in the same spot. Typically that's allowed because buildings are more difficult to move than fences. Same thing with uses. If a business, you know, an auto repair shop has been in the same location for 50 years and they go out of business, an auto repair shop can go back in the same spot as long as it happens pretty quickly. But the building official did allow it under that policy. Current zoning code requires fencing to meet current municipal code. When someone applies for a building permit or other city approvals, we do look for the conforming things to be brought into compliance. So after staff reviewed that preliminary site plan, we got back in contact with the property owners and we explained how the municipal code would apply to their project. And their options were to revise certain locations of the structures to meet the setbacks of the municipal code, or they could apply for a variance and use permit. The applicants took their site plan back and they worked, restructured, and tried to move things around to meet the municipal code as best they could. They made modifications to it, and they chose to apply for a variance and use permit on some of those other items that they couldn't get to meet the municipal code. The below section are excerpts from our municipal code on accessory structures and fencing, and then just a description of where they have their structures located and how many feet how many foot setback they meet and how much it would need to meet the code. Towards the bottom of page 3, the project submittal was submitted to the different departments of the city and different agencies. And so below is kind of a synopsis of some of the concerns that came back. Traffic rated materials. On the First Street side of the project, on the west side, a new sliding gate was installed. This will allow access for the RV to get in and out to the structure that is proposed. And the engineer noted when he visited the site that the gutter, sidewalk, and there's a Pacific Bell telephone box in the sidewalk, they were broken. And that when those materials were installed on that section of the sidewalk, at the time it was not intended as a driveway, so it wasn't designed for vehicle traffic to drive over it. And so the engineer is recommending that if the project is approved, a condition be added that that area that the driveway is going to be reinstalled, be taken out and reinstalled with traffic rated materials so that it can handle the traffic. Another potential concern of staff is site distance in relation to the fence. The public works superintendent, the city engineer, and the police chief went out to the site and they cited inadequate site distance for vehicles that are on Fisk Street headed south, merging onto First Street. The location is near El Portal Middle School, and during pickup and drop-off time, there's lots of parents in their vehicles and pedestrians, buses. It gets pretty congested. And so when vehicles stop at the stop sign on Fisk Avenue before they get onto First Street, their view of First Street is limited because of the fence. And vehicles must pull out across the crosswalk almost to the gutter before they have a clear view approaching vehicles. So it just creates a potentially dangerous situation. On the west side of the project site, the neighbor has a U-shaped driveway. One of the entrance exits is directly adjacent to the fence, the neighbor's fence, and it has limited views. You have to pull out onto the sidewalk to be able to see the traffic on First Street. Because it is a U-shaped driveway, there is another entrance exit further west that has a better line of sight. The city engineer recommended that if the fence is not required to be set at the 15 feet back from the First Street property line like the code would require, that it at least be located an extra 5 feet back from its current location. It's currently 2.5 feet back from behind the sidewalk, and he recommends an additional 5 for a total of 7.5. As always with variances, there is a concern for setting precedents. Staff receives probably half a dozen, 6 or so inquiries a year from property owners in town that live on corner lots. They usually want to push out their side fence closer to the street to give them more usable backyard area. And the corner lot setbacks, the 15-foot, is put in place for sight distance safety reasons, as we talked about above, but also aesthetic appeal. Side corner lots should have landscaping in that setback area, turf, shrubs, trees, boulders. It gives attractive curb appeal, and it helps blend in that corner lot with the neighbor's front yard next door. And so if the Planning Commission finds that a 15 side yard setback is maybe too burdensome on corner lots, because that exterior area on the side lot doesn't provide a whole lot of benefit for the homeowner themselves. Not everybody wants to clay or store their stuff on the external side of their yard. People like to do that behind the fence. So if the 15 feet is found to be maybe too much, Planning Commission can direct staff to bring an ordinance amendment, or reach out to other cities, do some research, see what their corner lot setbacks are. Maybe ours is too much, and maybe that can be reduced. Landscaping, as talked about a little bit above, front and side yard landscaping is a major component for curb appeal and maintaining aesthetics. So if the project's approved, condition was included that the corner of First Street and Fisk Avenue on this project site receive some rehabilitated landscaping, and any side yard area between First Street and the fence also be landscaped. As a side note, not attached to landscaping, in the past, metal carport structures weren't typically allowed. Accessory structures needed to be constructed of similar materials to the house, so stucco, wood, vinyl siding. But recently, City Council directed staff to update that section of the code to allow metal structures, as long as they're permitted, engineered, and the stormwater doesn't run off onto the neighbor's property. Staff's in the process of making these updates to the zoning code, and that'll be going to Planning Commission and City Council shortly for review. But because that direction has already been given and the staff is already working on those amendments, the fact that one of these structures is a metal carport, it doesn't have any negative impact on the project, that it'll be acceptable. Next are the findings that are going to be required for use permits and variances. Staff conducted all the appropriate public outreach. We published a notice in the Escalon Times. We sent that same notice to all the property owners and tenants within 300 feet. And staff did not receive any calls or concerns about the project as a result of these notices. The decision tonight does have a 10 business day appeal period. The Commission's actions can be appealed by City Council or by someone from the public. Staff reviewed all the comments from the other agencies, and we put together the conditions of approval below. And if Planning Commission wants to approve the application, they would take the following 5 steps. Open the public hearing, close the public hearing, make the findings for variances and conditional use permits, find the project CEQA exempt and authorize staff to file the exemption, and approve the variance and use permit with the conditions stated below or as modified as needed. I'm going to go over a couple of the specific conditions on this. Approval number 1. This section lines out, if the project is approved, what the specific variance allowances would be. So section A is for the fence, they need to know what is the allowable setback from the First Street property. B, the wood shed, what is their allowable setback from the fence on Fisk? The metal carport, letter C, what would their setback be from the property line to the west, from the house to the north, and the allowed square footage? And then the accessory structure lot coverage, the percentage. Condition number 3 is that traffic rated driveway, if it's approved, that they have to pull out the existing area where the driveway would be and install traffic rated materials. Landscaping, number 4, that the First and Fisk Avenue corner area be re-landscaped, and any section between the First Street fence and the First Street sidewalk be landscaped. All landscaping these days have to comply with WELO. That's the state water landscape conservation ordinance. Some projects do qualify for an exemption if it's less than 500 square feet. But we'll work with the applicants on that. Storm drainage, the metal carport to the west is proposed at 1 foot off the property line. The applicants just need to make sure that the storm water does not run off the carport onto the neighbor's side. And if they find that it does, being at 1 foot, then they'd have to put up a gutter or something to catch it to keep it from going on the neighbor's side. And then the accessory structures do need to have building permits pulled on them. They are like prefabricated kits, and so they'll have to work with the companies to get engineering docs on them, which all these companies do offer. So that's it for the staff report. If you have any questions, Dominique or myself are available for questions. And when we do get to the public hearing, the applicant is on the phone, so they would be able to help you with any questions that staff can't answer. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Diane. I had to unmute myself so you didn't hear the dogs barking. Sorry. Great. So questions to staff. I see Commissioner Strohan first on my screen. Can we start with you?
Mr. Chair, for the last 4 years, we've been on the Planning Commission, and the last name is Stroman, not Stroham.
Sorry.
Right? I know you're getting used to the whole webinar meetings, but it's Stroman, not Stroham.
Stroman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a real quick question for staff. On Exhibit C, there is a square listed as S3. What is that?
Structure 3. That is an existing plastic shed. The dimensions on it were pretty small. I think it was 8 by 10 or something like that. It's just an existing shed that's there.
Okay, so that's existing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chair, I have nothing further. I'll wait till the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Commissioner Willis?
I have nothing at this time. I'll wait until after we hear from the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Danziger?
Let me unmute. A couple questions to staff. The fence is already up, and some of us may have seen it during construction. Were you at any point during this process giving approval for that?
Giving approval for what part?
The fence as it stands now.
In 2004, the fence was replaced, and the building official at the time had allowed the homeowners to do that. The fence, as it was modified to install the gate, we did not permit that.
And did the applicants know that they had to go through this process before doing that?
We were in process with the applicants, is reviewing the site plan, providing comments. They weren't aware, I mean, a decision hasn't been made onto the location of the fence and whether it could stay or not. So the applicants were taking a bit of a risk putting the gate in case Planning Commission decides that the whole fence has to move back. The gate would have to move back as well.
Okay. Last question is on the metal RV covering. Is this being proposed with the gutter on the for the west side?
At this time, a gutter is not proposed on it, as it is 1 foot away. We're not quite sure exactly what the stormwater will do, if it'll head straight down, because the side, it does have partial sides on it, so the water may run down at an angle and then stay adjacent to the structure 1 foot away from the fence. But there is a condition, if it is approved, that if once it's constructed and winter comes and the rain's coming down on it, if it does shoot out over the neighbor's fence, they are going to have to put a gutter on it after the fact. So that neighbor is protected.
All right, I'll hold off my other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Castellanos?
I do have a couple of questions for staff. Your notes talked about the history that the existing fence was replaced in 2004. It says due to damage or destroyed. During the time that it was reconstructed, why wasn't the new fence flagged during that time if it was illegal? That's one question I have. The second question is, was the original fence 8 feet 2 inches tall?
So in
Looking
the,
through the property file on the project, we don't have any permits or any history on that fence other than a memo from the building official that the fence was replaced in 2004, that the city was aware that it was non-conforming, meaning it didn't meet code because it was only 2.5 feet back, but the building official at the time did allow that. She used that non-conforming use policy, although it's typically related to buildings and uses, not fences. They used it and allowed the homeowners at the time to put the fence at the 2.5 feet. But no permits at the time were required, so I'm not sure how tall it was.
Yeah, so, I mean, okay. So we don't know how big the original fence was that was destroyed. Another question I have is, do you know what the total lot coverage is of all the existing buildings, porches, patios, plus the proposed 2 structures? Do you know what the total coverage ratio on that site is?
So I did not calculate it with the house as well. I added up the 3, structure 1, structure 2, structure 3, and it is at 16% of the lot. The house, the attached patio covers, those are all allowed at 65%. They have a very large lot, and just by looking at it, they're under the 65%, so I didn't calculate that exactly. But the 65% allowed for the building, the house, the attached patio covers. The 65% is exclusive of the 15%. You can have 65% lot coverage for the building, house, patio, plus 15% for your accessory structures.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so 2 questions for me. One being, has there been any police reports of any accidents at that corner of First and Fisk, is it?
First and Fisk.
Yeah.
The project was transmitted to the police department. They cited site visibility issues on that corner of First and Fisk, but the police department did not provide any traffic accident information. That specific question was not asked of the police department. We didn't ask them specifically to give us the number of accidents, if there were any. So I'm not sure if they looked that information up or not.
Okay, thank you. And then on the fence facing First Street, the height of it, that includes the lattice work on top, correct? That we're talking about?
Correct.
Because it looked like that the lattice work is just in addition to, you know, the top of the fence.
That's
That's
correct.
Okay.
correct.
Okay, and from a code perspective, is that lattice portion considered part of the fence?
Lattice is considered part of the fence, yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. So let's see, at 7:27, we can open up the meeting, open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. And if when someone will try to be organized, if someone speaks up from the audience, please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Bob Garcia, and I live at 1635 Fisk Avenue. My property is the property immediately north of the property we're talking about.
Okay. Did you have any comments about the
Yes, I do.
project?
To begin with, based on the fact that, letters went out to all the surrounding owners and there was no response back, I would assume it was because whatever was in the instructions of what was proposed and so forth, that it wasn't any concern of anybody. In other words, everybody was probably, would accept the situation just the way it is. I've lived on Fisk Avenue now for 50 years, and I don't know if about that 2004 reconstruction of the fence, but it seemed to me that fence has always been there. And of course, I guess there maybe was a time when it wasn't, but anyway, as far as I'm concerned, it was always there. And in regards to the traffic approaching that stop sign, if you stop, I got in my car today and I pulled out there and I stopped at that where you would stop at the stop sign, and looking to the right, if there was a car, especially or whatever, parked illegally just back of the red marker, it would obstruct more than the existing fence does. I don't see where that fence obstructs any, creates any problem as far as traffic problems. The fence is really the only thing that I'm concerned with here in this, because as far as the inside structures and you're talking about and so forth, but I just don't see any problem with that fence just as it sets. I think it's, I've always thought that back in time there was a corner lot had the ability to have a higher fence on the side that you wouldn't ordinarily have on an inside lot. But here we go. It seems to me if anything should be grandfathered in or so forth, this is an example of where that should be and accepted. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. I appreciate that. Is the property owner is on the call?
Yeah. Well, hi. This is Gary Flaming. And we are the homeowners of the property in question. The last few years, just a few things we want to say. We've been working to figure out how we can accommodate our property and be able to utilize it in a better way. Due to the fact that we have no driveway, at our house like a typical house would have. We have a number of vehicles and trailers that have been on the street and on the corner of our property. We're just trying to clean everything up, get things off the street, make it look better. We originally thought that, that fence with, like, talking Bob, that fence has been here, we believe, for about 50 years. Or El Patel even existed. This house was built in 1945. It was a quarter-acre lot at that time. It's quite a big property. We have worked hard and invested in our property, and we're just trying to organize everything, keep everything clean, like we said, off the streets, because we don't have the ability to park in a driveway. Keep our items secure, things like that. There is a lot of traffic with the school being across the street. There's foot traffic, there's vehicle traffic, there's parent parking, there's walkers, bicyclers. In the 6 years we have lived here, we have never seen a traffic accident at that corner. I do believe part of that is because if you look, the fence does go back 22 feet from Fisk Avenue, so that does help. But other corners in this area as well that don't have fences right up to the sidewalks, but do have trees and bushes, it's the same thing. You can't see around them. You have to inch out, which actually is a little bit safer because you're inching out with all this traffic going on and just being safe and secure. Even when you look to the west, coming out, making a left onto Fisk Avenue, you have to be careful with those cars that are parked there. When teachers are parked there, you can't see around them either. So you inch out, whether the fence is there or not, everybody inches out and is a little bit more careful, just like on Oklahoma and on James Street. If you don't approve our request tonight, we would be required to move our fence due to needing that permit to continue with our plans. But the reality is that we would be unable to move our plan forward, meaning that there would be no need to move that fence. So the fence would continue to exist as is. So I guess that would be my comment to putting the gate in. We had actually had that, we didn't realize all this until beginning of the year when we got together with the city, and we started planning this months before. That gate had been built for months before we even met with the city, and the person was just holding it for us, and they got to a point where they needed to install it. So we decided if we can't do anything with this, then we're just not going to be able to add that structure 1 and structure 2, and the fence would stay where it is. We do need this variance though to have the room to utilize that property and clean things up, keep things off the street. So thank you for setting up this meeting for us and listening to us. We would appreciate you approving it so we can move forward with our plans. But again, thank you for the consideration of this request.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners,
Yeah.
Commissioner Escalon,
You taking any more public comments?
Yes.
Hi, my name is
Greg.
My name is Mike Cooper. I live at 1640 Fisk, right across the street from the property in question. And I believe that this plan should be allowed to go forward because if you've ever come around this property during school time or just normal time, it's ridiculous the amount of cars that end up parked in front of it. Excuse me, for people picking up their kids from school these poor people don't have any driveway. And like Mr. Garcia said, that fence has been there. I've been here for 22 years, and that fence has been there as long as I can remember. As far as the traffic, common courtesy always prevails. So you got some people that get in a hurry and they pick up their kids and they zip down the street. I think that's a greater hazard than a fence. And I don't know if you guys have driven past the property, but the parking there is quite a challenge even for the residents. So, to allow them to do what they have to do with their property, it only makes sense. And I mean, my 2 cents worth, I hope you guys approve their variance. Thank you.
Great.
My name's Greg. Yeah, my name's Greg Largent. I live at 529 Cardinal Drive here in Escalon. Calling on behalf of the residents of 1655 Fisk. I'm in support of the request for their variance. I've been a teacher across the street at El Portel for the past 30 years. It's nice to see the folks that are in that residence clean it up. I think that it would be nice to allow that for them. Like I said, the last 30 years, I've lived here all my life. For the last 30 years, I've taught, and I've never seen any accidents. And it is chaos there. And just to get some other cars off the street to allow other people to park and pick up their children, that would be beneficial as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Largent. Appreciate that.
Hi, this is Logan Rice. Hi, this is Logan Rice. I live on 1535 Fisk Avenue. I would just like to speak on the safety aspect. Having the new gate and the street has been cleaned up. We have two small kids, and we often ride our bikes and walk, and it just feels safer crossing the road there to get to El Portel and just going around the corner. So I would say it has cleaned up the street.
Okay, thank you, Mr. I think you said Mr. Rice. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
So I did receive a chat to everyone. Probably just want to read this out so it's on the record. This is from Charlene Crumbly. She lives at 1532 Irwin Avenue. We have lived here for 15 years and always remembered that fence being there without issue. We have no problems with the fence being there and the existing height, considering the amount of heavy traffic that occurs on First Street. If anything else, we feel that this is considered home improvement and looks quite nice. Was there someone else that wanted to speak up about the project?
Yes, one more, please. This is Chris Harp. I live on 1521 Fifth Ave. I wanted to kind of echo the sentiment that everyone else had. I don't see why they'd have to take this fence down. They're already on an existing footprint, so it's not like they've added to any problem that was already there. Traffic has always been an issue on the street. Parking's always been an issue on the street, and unfortunately, their house is built very close to the road. They don't have a driveway. It's very inconvenient for them. And I've never seen any kind of accidents there. It's much safer, especially now that there's an additional stop sign down on El Portel, right from the school there. So from a resident standpoint, we think we support it completely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harp.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question, Chair. For the applicant, when was the concrete poured in this area?
It was just done recently.
Okay.
That's part of, we've been planning it for months, but we just recently were able to save up enough money to get it done.
Okay, so I guess this is a question for you, but also a question for staff. So more so you. So you were you were going down the path that you were pouring all of this concrete in preparation that this structure 1 and structure 2 would be approved. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. We poured the concrete to get all of our vehicles in the back. Structure 1, we have quite a few toys for dirt bikes, quads, things like that are in our garage because we have no other place for it. So the thought was, if all this goes through, we want to put the structure in there so that we can put all that stuff in the structure so we can actually have a garage for the car. And then our extra vehicles have been going in the back with our trailers in the back. One of our trailers was on the corner of Fisk and First forever and ever, our tent trailer. So we've moved that to the back. So again, if it wasn't all necessarily that we will get this shed, this 2 structures. Those are just something we would like to also do as well.
Okay. And this is, Mr. Chair, this is just a overall comment for the members of the audience that spoke up during public hearing. I appreciate all of you joining us virtually and in support of your neighbors. I just want you to keep in mind that our job as the planning commissioners are to follow the rules of Escalon Municipal Code. And so whether or not this project moves forward, I want you to understand our position as your planning commissioners is that we were appointed by the city council to basically to follow the municipal code. And while there are areas to move projects forward, there are some inherent risks in moving this project forward. But for example, when just some examples, when we're looking at the setback requirements of structure 1 and structure 2, we like those structures to be moved a lot further away than from the fence line than what they currently are in the event of a fire. And so we come from a standpoint of, okay, if the structure or the contents located within the structure were to catch on fire, how would we provide access for the fire department? And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, you can all see me, I'm not a little guy, and I wouldn't be able to crawl behind a structure 1 foot and try to fight a fire if structure 2 or the trailer located within that were to catch on fire. Yeah, I would have access at the 16-foot dimension, or maybe even the 3.5-foot dimension, but we have to follow the rules of Escalon Municipal Code. So I appreciate all of you taking the time. I'm assuming you're Mrs. Garcia. Welcome to our meeting. Mr. Garcia, you didn't introduce her to the meeting, so shame on you. You're on mute right now. We can't hear you. So, but all of my other questions will stay for later on the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Castellanos, do you have any questions for the homeowner?
Yeah, I do. As Commissioner Stroman said, I'm also concerned about the setbacks, what was not, I guess, clearly, addressed earlier is that structure number 2 also exceeds the accessory building size. So my question is, do you need a 40-foot long carport to meet the needs of your fifth wheel? Because, in addition to the setback to the fence, to me more critical is how close it's going to be to the dwelling.
So our trailer is 40.5 inches long.
Okay, so you answered
40.8 inches long.
Okay, so he answered my question. Okay, I don't have any other questions right now. Then that was pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Willis?
I have a few questions. Mrs. Fleming, are you okay with repairing the sidewalk, the gutter, and the pack bell box there on First Street?
Yes.
Okay. At present, the shed, the second structure, does not appear to be in the southeast corner. Your pop-up trailer is there. Is that going to stay there, or is that going to take the place of where the shed is now?
Sorry. Yeah, the trailers that are there now would come up closer to the house.
And then the shed would go toward the corner?
Yes, but the shed, we are able to get it 15 feet back from the sidewalk and still be within code from how far we are from the house, and we would meet all the codes at that point when it comes to the actual shed.
Okay. I agree that safety is important, but on a corner lot, it seems like you have adequate access for a firefighting crew, an engine, a truck. I don't have a problem with the current location of the fence, nor its height. But at the corner, I'm wondering if you could take off the corner of the fence, take it back to the second post on Fisk, and then go to the third post on First, and just slice off that corner. And then whatever's in that corner, whether it be the pop-up trailer or the shed, just move it slightly to the north and west.
I'm not understanding.
If you're heading south on Fisk, your fence is blocking the view until you get out into the crosswalk. So if you cut off that corner, you know, just make it say go back to exactly. Get back to the first post on Fisk, and then take it to the third post on First. I'm not sure how much square footage or whatever, but it seems like there still might be room for your toys.
and then just put up a new fence that way, so we would have a cut-out fence, the fence would go in instead of out.
Well, and that looks like an older part of the fence, so it seems like you'd just be able to move it, replace it, and have some left over. And then also, when it comes to the visibility at the corner, that bushy thing is kind of tall. Are you okay with redoing the landscaping and keeping it low so people can see over it?
Yeah, that's part of everything we're trying to do as well. Next step is to get the stump out of there from the tree that we had cut down, and to eventually plant another tree in there. And then we had bushes around there, and a few years ago when they did our hedges, and when they redid the sidewalk, they got taken out. They were kind of mutilated, and so we had to take them out. But yes, that is also part of what we want to do as well. And that was getting the tent trailer out of there, so then now we can start fixing that part up as well.
I am disturbed by how much work was done before approval was sought, but I think we're able to work with it, and you've got a T-shaped house is not a standard, and your property is such that it's not maybe the normal orientation. I don't think you should be penalized or for something, because the current fence there on First is taking the place of the old one. It's not like you moved it out or anything. So I want to work with you on this.
Okay.
And I do have some other comments, but they can be held until the end. Thank you, Mrs. Feynman.
Thank you, Commissioner Willis. Commissioner Danziger?
Thank you, Chair. Staff, in 2004, you alluded that the building official at that time used some kind of rationale to approve the fence where it is. What was the ordinance saying in 2004? Is it the same as it is now?
Because the memo cited that the fence is non-conforming, I didn't look at a copy of the ordinance from 2004, but because they say that the fence was non-conforming, we can assume that the ordinance was not 2.5 feet where the fence is. It must have, the code at the time must have required more than 2.5 feet from behind the property line to make the fence non-conforming.
And see, this is the deal here. I admire the Flemings for coming forward along with all their neighbors. I do appreciate that. However, as a commission and representative of the city, to to approve a non-conforming use that blocks site, even though there was, in my opinion, an error made in 2004, I think we accept some liability. Should anything happen because of that, if that were to be cited because it doesn't meet the code. So, just to feel things out here to the Flemings, the city engineer has proposed moving the fence back 5 feet. Would that impact your trailer so that you could move your trailer closer to it at that point and meet the setback from the house?
It's the trailer is up against the house right now, or well, pretty close to it. Moving it back 5 feet, our trailer would still fit in there, but we wouldn't be able to. It would shorten with that in the structure. We wouldn't have enough room to bring the extra vehicles in and out like we are right now. Does that make sense? Because the trailer is 16 feet. The trailer is 16 feet, so that gives us 11 feet. There's not much room to between that and the structure number 1 to be able to get in and out. I guess that's what I'm worried about.
Where was your trailer up until this point?
We were paying for it to be at a place off of Kiernan.
I'm sorry, you did what?
We were paying for it to be at a storage place off of Kiernan.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I have a 35-foot RV, and I pay for it to be stored too. So there are quite a few RVs in the city that are on properties that don't have fences on them, and I live over here off of Brennan. I can point to a couple of motorhomes there that virtually go to the sidewalk, no fence, and they've been parked there for quite a few years. I think whenever you
do they have swimming pools in their backyard?
We also have a swimming pool in our backyard, so we have to make sure our backyard is completely locked and closed up from the public, so that we are not a liability if somebody was to wander into our backyard and get hurt in the pool.
Understood. And you have a fence right now. I'm just wondering what real hardship, if you look at structure number 1, if that were not to go in and you move the fence back 5 feet as suggested by the city engineer, would you still be able to get all your vehicles in there?
No.
No. Because we wouldn't be able to get past the trailer.
You can't get past the trailer. Okay.
No, yeah. It wouldn't give us enough room to get around it.
Okay. Those are my questions at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have another question.
Okay.
For the applicant. So, would it be agreeable to have one, if you had to pick between structure 1 and structure 2, which is more important to you guys? Covering your fifth wheel or having a wood shed?
The wood shed, just because then we could get everything out of the garage, all of our toys out of the garage. We could actually utilize our garage for our car, get it off the street.
Okay. I'm just trying to think, obviously you guys weren't responsible for putting the fence 2.5 feet off the property line. I myself live on a corner lot, and unfortunately I'm at the 15 feet. I'm just trying to think of a way that we can help you, but at the same time maintain the requirements of the municipal code. And so
right now, so you know, like right now, whenever we want to do anything in our garage, whether it be work on one of the quads or even just work on something that we want in the house that we got to do in the garage, we have to pull everything out, and it's all along the sidewalk because we have no driveway. Then we do our thing, and then we put everything back in, but during that time, everything's just sitting out on the sidewalk.
Okay, so, and then for staff, once they're done scrolling,
Oh, we're just trying to give you an idea of where their driveway is. Their garage door's there, so you could see. I mean, I'm not even sure if they maybe have 5 feet. They can't even park in their driveway without blocking the sidewalk, so they don't have a driveway at all.
No, it's only a sidewalk. It comes out to the sidewalk.
Yeah.
okay. Staff, can you go back to Exhibit C?
Sure.
So which portion of that fence along First would have to be the 3.5 foot high requirement in order to meet the municipal code?
The municipal code requires that any fence, hedge, or wall within 15 feet of that front property line be 3 feet tall.
So along Fisk or along First?
The portion along First Street, if they kept the fence at that location to meet municipal code, would need to be dropped to 3 feet.
Okay.
At its current location.
Otherwise, so that 8.5, 8'2" fence along First would have to drop down to 3 feet along First, or they move it back to 15 feet, and then it can be the standard height per municipal code, correct?
Right. Anything within the first 15 feet of your front property line can be 3 feet, and then once you hit that 15-foot setback, you can go up to 7 feet. And then the north-south fence that goes along this, that could be graduated according to code from 3 feet when you go from the First Street side, whoever has the pointer. The corner of First and Fisk, yeah, so right there, back 15 feet, it can graduate from 3 feet to 15 feet.
Okay.
That's what the code requires.
Okay. This is just a question for the Flemings. Flemings. Am I saying that right? Flamings?
Flamings, yes.
Okay. Would you guys consider taking off the lattice on the top of the fence?
Not a problem.
Because, I mean, I can't tell because they're not to scale, but that lattice part, to me, just looking at Exhibit D with all the photos, that looks to be about 2 feet. And right now, if the fence measures 8'2" high and remove 2 feet, that's 6'2", and then we would just have to deal with the setback requirement. But it still gets you a heck of a lot closer than the 8'2" what it is currently. So,
That's not a problem.
just a thought. That's all I have for the moment, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I did have a question. It's hard to scale on this Exhibit D. I know there's dimensions, but is there any? Did you think about switching the locations of structure 1 and 2, so your trailer parking and gate would be accessed along Fisk?
So-
would that alleviate any issues?
Well, originally where structure 1 is, that's where we wanted to put our trailer. But like I said, we've been planning this for quite a few years. We've just been saving up money. And at that time, there was no stop sign right there. Then when they redid the corner, they put up that stop sign. That's why that tree had been taken out, because that was the plan, to try and make a gate right here, or right going into structure 1. Structure 1 wasn't going to exist at all. Yeah, right there. And we were just going to make a trailer entrance right there. But then with the stop sign there, now we couldn't. So then we put our heads together and came up with this other section, which then we decided, well, since we have all that empty spot, it would be nice to put something in there to get all of our everything in the garage in there so we can utilize our garage.
Okay. And is there, could structure 1 be parallel with structure 2? Just trying to think of other options that could help with setbacks.
Couldn't get anything else in.
How far would it come out?
Diana, does structure 1 have setback issues though?
The only issue structure 1 has is that it's 1.5 feet from the Fisk fence. It should be 5 feet from the fence. If they move structure 1 over by structure 2, it would just need to be 5 feet away from structure 2 and 5 feet away from the house.
But when we started this, we were told as long as it was 15 feet from the fence, so we were told it would be okay up by the fence, not 5 feet from the fence, or else we would have planned differently.
Yeah, originally when we were looking at that, the municipal code defines fences as structures if they're over 6 feet tall. So if it was a typical 6-foot fence, the 1.5 feet would be okay. But once you go above 6 feet on a fence, the municipal code classifies that fence as a structure in which accessory structures have to be 5 feet away from every other structure. So if you did what I think it was Commissioner Stroman said, which is remove the lattice, which drops the fence down to 6 feet, then you can be 1.5 feet from that fixed fence.
Okay.
That's an easy one.
And it sounds like that portion is acceptable to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any other questions at this point.
Chair, one other thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, all these ideas just keep popping in my head. So, for the flamings, I understand that you installed the gate along First Street, but what do you think about Commissioner Sarkozy's idea of flip-flopping structure 1 and structure 2?
The stop sign.
But then the stop sign would be stopping us. That was the original plan.
Okay. So, staff, how is the stop sign stopping them?
You don't want a driveway that close to an intersection.
Okay. Even one that is somewhat it's not used on a daily basis?
Well, and the stop sign is not right up on the corner. It's right smack in the middle of that fence right there.
Okay. Okay.
It's set back. When they redid it, they moved it back quite a few feet.
Well, who the heck did that?
Well, there was never one there to begin with, sorry. And then when they did the corner, then they put one there, but it's set back quite a few feet back from the corner.
All right, I'm done with my questions for now. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions during the public comment period? Okay. Thank you. So it's 8:04 now, and we'll close the public comment time. And let's see. So commissioners, I guess we can open the discussion with staff. Have any other questions? Okay, well, with that being said, staff, do you have any further comments you can help us with?
No further comments.
Okay.
Chair, I'm sorry again, but for the flamings, so right now, that dimension of structure 2 is how far off the fence? 1 foot?
We were asking for 1 foot. We could probably go a little bit more than that, but because that's our neighbor's front yard, we were told it would need to be 10 foot, which is why we were asking for the variance.
You were told what? I'm sorry.
10 feet off the fence.
Staff, what does the code require?
Typically for accessory structures, it is 10 feet, but when we went back and reviewed the code, if there's no occupancy, meaning it's not an accessory structure that you would sit under, like a patio cover or a workshop that you would be working in. If it's just for storage, even storage of an RV, 5 foot is the code. So you have it 1 foot off the rear property line, code would require 5 feet, not the 10.
Okay, so Flaming family, would you be willing to push that over 4 feet, and would that still give you the clearance that you need to get in for the rest of the areas?
Before you answer that, I have a question to staff too. I in my notes I have Genevieve down, where one of these structures has just recently gone up, and the variance asked for no setback from a house from the fence. And as a commission, Mr. and Mrs. Flamin, you should know, we voted as a commission 4-0 not to allow that, because the way the code is written, those materials don't match the structure or the color and the makings up of the house, and there was no setback. The council was asked to, in an appeal from the property owner, to rule on that, and they ruled in favor, 5-0, in favor of the property owner. So there is 0 setback on that structure. So I'm more of a mind to allow that as it is, pending the change to the code and the sections that are going to come up very shortly from staff. My input.
I have a question for Mrs. Fleming.
Okay.
The trailer has pop-outs on both sides, is that correct?
Yes.
And will those completely come under the roof of the structure that you want to put there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It would have to be perfectly placed by the ribs, and pop-outs normally go anywhere from 2 to 4 feet, depending upon the make and off. Put that out there. So, not having seen your unit, I can't say that I would agree with that.
Well, okay, then I'm confused at what she's asking, pop-outs go out if they will be underneath the unit still? Like, because we're not going to keep the pop-outs out. It's just to store it. If anything, we go in there, we pull it out, we'll do some cleaning, we put it back all,
It's just the other day when I went by, they were both out on both sides. I just wondered.
Yeah, our daughter came down from out of state, so she went in there, stayed in there for a couple days. But it doesn't have to be. We just have it out because we have the room right now.
What if, does the structure number 1 need to be 36 feet long to fit all of your toys?
Pretty much, yes. We have a lot of toys.
I was just thinking if that could be shortened at all. What if you turned it so that it was parallel with your house and parallel along Fisk, and then that would give you even more room to navigate around, but then you would have a shorter shed. That's all. You know what I mean? Like right now, like flip it 90 degrees the way it is, so it's in parallel with the fence.
Yeah, I would have to see, because when we were looking at these things, at first we were trying to do this with no permit. We were just going to try to get a smaller one that didn't need a permit, and it wasn't going to work. We were going to have to get 2 of them, and we'd rather just have it look nice and neat, have one nice one that has everything in there. We don't want to clutter this backyard with all kinds of stuff. That's just was the idea behind it all.
Okay.
My husband works on, he's always working on the dirt bikes and the quads, and my dad has a side-by-side that we work on, so it's just, there's a lot.
Yeah, I think, Commissioner Danziger brings up a good point about that other cover that was brought to the Planning Commission, a handful of, what has been 5 or 6 months now, and that went in with, as you said, no setbacks. Okay.
Just to that point, and we haven't addressed it yet because it isn't part of the code, but the storm runoff from that Genevieve has yet to be, I guess, adequately addressed. I don't know that it ever will be, but it could be an issue later down the road that they might have to comply with if there's a problem with erosion from the fence to the neighbors there to the west or northwest.
Would the Flamings be open to having a rain gutter on the west side as part of this package?
Yes, definitely.
And then I guess draining out towards First Street.
Yeah, I still have concrete, a little bit of concrete along the fence, and the reason I didn't pour it is I'm gonna pour a little curb so the water can't go in their yard. It'll run right down under the fence line on our side. I just have to form that up and pour it still.
Okay.
Question for staff. So staff, the broken sidewalk and gutter and broken packed bell box, would that be the responsibility of the Flamings to remove all of the sidewalk and the packed bell box and put it back?
So not all of the sidewalk fronting their property, but however wide their gate is, I'm not sure how wide their gate is, but that width creates a driveway area. So the section in front of the gate would need to be removed and put back in. The property owners would be responsible for doing that, and they would pull an encroachment permit from City Hall because it is the public right-of-way. So they would do that work under an encroachment permit. It would get inspections, and they would submit the materials that they're going to use so our engineer can verify that it is traffic rated.
Aren't all of our sidewalks traffic rated?
I don't believe so, because the engineer's comment says that this section is not. Maybe because it wasn't originally a driveway on that side. I'm not sure, but he indicated that this section is not traffic rated.
I just see, so I just see this as an issue because so many people throughout our city, me including, I'll throw myself under the bus, I added concrete to create a third parking space. And I drive over it at least twice a day, but it's just a normal sidewalk. I just thought all of our sidewalks, luckily it's not broken or else I'd get dinged by Public Works. But I think that, we have this issue with the sidewalk absolutely everywhere throughout the city, not just this particular location. Unfortunately, the issue with the packed bell box is going to be a bigger issue because in order to repair the packed bell box, you're going to have to jackhammer out the concrete to gain access to the packed bell box. That's my concern. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, Commissioner Stroman, that's a good point. Just 10 feet to the west is another driveway going over the sidewalk.
Actually, it's not even 10 feet from that corner. The driveway starts right after that corner, I believe.
So staff, I don't know the folks that live on, what would that be, the west side, but looking at Exhibit D with the photos, it looks like they drive over the sidewalk a lot more than what the Flamings will be driving over the sidewalk with their fifth wheel. So, just a thought, that's all. Keep going, too far.
Mrs. Flaming already said that she was gonna take care of the sidewalk and gutter staff, does that mean that she just works with city staff to make sure that the rebar or underlayment or whatever is adequate?
Yes.
But
Yes,
Commissioner Willis,
exactly. Yeah.
Commissioner Willis, my question is though, why are we making the Flamings do the sidewalk whenever 7 feet away, somebody's driving over the same sidewalk more often than what the Flamings would?
But it's not the same sidewalk. They put it in, and they might not have been to the same specifications.
It's probably all about the PG&E bucks.
We didn't put that
to be driven over.
I think PG&E's got to be engaged also.
I see the sidewalk being an issue because here we are trying to impose upon the Flamings to repair the sidewalk, and yet 7 feet away, somebody else is doing the same darn thing. That's just my thoughts.
Well, and just, I mean, I guess I just want to put it out there because we're talking about it. That street right there is packed every day that school's in session. Cars are driving up on that sidewalk all the time and parking there waiting for their kids.
And making illegal U-turns using that sidewalk.
Turns on that sidewalk.
So to that point, Mr. and Mrs. Flaming, I would request that you follow up with the police department and ask them to just fill out a little form and say, would you mind keeping an eye on the illegal U-turns? Because they will pay attention to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and this question is for staff. What is PG&E's responsibility with that box in the sidewalk?
Packed bell box.
Yeah.
Or packed bell box?
Yeah, Pacific Bell, it's telephone company. Their responsibility as far as what? As replacing it?
Yeah, the integrity of it.
Well, Pac Bell was notified of the project. We sent them a transmittal. We didn't hear anything back from them regarding it. I would have to talk to engineering about any responsibility for the box. I'm not sure.
Well, we can't prove who broke the box. I mean, it could have been a parent. It could have been somebody picking their child up. It could have been, Joe Schmo walking down the street just decided to beat the heck out of the packed bell box. So why do we want to encumber that additional cost against the Flamings? I mean, yeah, granted, it's driveway and, constantly driving over the box may be an issue, but at the same time, now you're putting the burden of replacing the box back on the Flamings. I can ask them right now, Mr. and Mrs. Flaming, did you break the packed bell box by driving over it?
No, not that we are aware of, no.
So my only thoughts are maybe a concrete truck, when you were pouring the concrete in the backyard, broke it driving over it, but I don't know. I don't necessarily, technically, that is outside of the Flamings property line, correct?
No, it's on their property.
Typically, sidewalk is part of a property.
Okay. But yeah, so if the sidewalk is part of the property, and the sidewalk breaks, this is just for my own education, where does the line, if the sidewalk becomes broken, when is it the city's responsibility to replace it versus when the homeowner's responsible to replace it?
Sidewalks are the property owner's responsibility. So when we receive complaints on damaged sidewalks or broken sidewalks, we follow up with the property owner and put them on notice that it needs to be repaired.
I was told the property owner owns to the middle of the street.
Mr. Flaming, I don't necessarily think that is correct because the sidewalk, the first 10 feet is of any lot throughout the city is in the public utilities easement. And so I don't think you want to be responsible for the middle of the street.
Yeah, that wasn't us. That was our neighbor.
Oh, okay. Mr.
That was
Neighbor,
nice.
Mr. Neighbor, don't go.
That was
there,
an
please.
experience. That was experience with the city about 15 years ago on a drain issue.
Well, luckily for all of us, there's a new kid in town, and we have some people that use a little bit of common sense. So.
Okay. Okay, well, I mean, in order to approve this project, we have a handful of items that we need to agree and vote on. You know, if we look at just the fence, if you know, setback from South First Street, you know, what are, you know, what we've gone through our comments. What is any commissioners, you know, motion to what we can do with this project?
Staff, can we do this one item at a time, or do we have to do them all at once?
Well, why
Commissioner Stroman, I think it's better if we do them one at a time, and I can throw in also what the property owner is requesting, because I left A through D pretty much blank to fill in. So like A, the setback from the First Street property line, the applicant is requesting 2.5 feet where it's currently located. So you can go with the 2.5 feet, or you could require a different setback amount.
Okay.
Got the wrong property.
Can I make a comment? The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank the Flemings for coming forward to try to see if they can get the project, you know, approved. My concern is that it looks like because there's some existing improvements on the property that don't meet code, they are being possibly penalized to come forward and doing the right thing, as opposed to what a lot of people do, is just ignore it and do whatever they want to do. I want to make sure we do something that doesn't discourage people from doing the right thing. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from. I know there's a lot of other issues with this project, but I want to make sure going forward that we don't do things that are going to discourage people to do what the city would like them to do, and that is, you know, follow the proper steps instead of trying to backdoor something. So that's my comment before we have any other discussions.
Okay. So Diana, we were going to go through line by line item of what needs approval, and we can discuss each one individually.
Correct. I think that would be best.
Okay. So the setback from First Street property line, you know, we discussed about removing the lattice work on it, and then, you know, in that case, you know, I actually would propose that the fence stay where it's at. Yeah, and not. It's certainly, you know, the gate looks nice. What Commissioner Castellano said, the property owners are doing the right thing, and, you know, especially on something that was approved by the city, albeit you know, somewhat questionably years and years ago. I certainly don't like to penalize people for that, and so I think for me that is a good compromise. I don't know how the other commissioners feel.
I would agree with you. I don't think the setback should be any different than it is. For years and years, the fence was there. It had this ugly plant growing on it, attached to it. It might have been aesthetically pleasing, but the fence right now is aesthetically pleasing the way it is. The only thing, and I do agree with taking off the lattice work on top, But I still think that if we push the corner back, it'll increase the visibility for somebody southbound on Fisk. And so as far as the fence, those are the three things. Keep the setback the same, take off the lattice, and shave off the corner.
Does the gate have metal framing with the lattice that's been put in on First Street?
There's a picture of the gate specifically. If you look in Exhibit D, we can see a picture of it. It's the first page of Exhibit D. Molly, are you able to take the lattice off the gate as well, or is that permanently welded on there?
No, we can take it off. Even though we would have to cut it, but we can.
I lost my.
Oh,
We had it done that way to match the rest of the fence.
Right.
Does anybody else
it
like the
can
idea
be-
about shaving off the corner or not?
So, Commissioner Willis, is that, are you, that, I just trying to get in my mind's eye, so that would just be, angled at that corner, right?
Yeah, just like we did with that property on, was it Rosina and Fur?
Yeah.
Yes.
Shave off the point, going from the first post, well, the second post on Fisk to the third post on First. And maybe some flexibility, maybe the second post instead of the third, but at least it would increase the visibility if you're looking west.
Okay, well, I would,
I'd like to come in. My first thought was the property down the street where the gentleman came and wanted to work on all his cars too. And he's got that corner lot. He doesn't have a sidewalk in front of his garage. And he's going to put in some other buildings out there too. I think that was his plan, to house those vehicles. His lot, I think, is obviously bigger than this one. But he went 15 feet away from the street. And with all due respect to Mr. and Mrs. Flaming, what we do here is going to be used as a model for anybody that's already done their setbacks and people coming in the future. This things about variances, they should be able to rewrite the code, because once you do one, you're opening up, unless it's a specifically different circumstance, and we've had those. You're very visible. It's going to be approved. Any kind of liability is going to be shared, I believe, with the city, and I just want everybody to understand that. I do agree that we want to work with you. We appreciate the fact you've come forward. I like Commissioner Willis's suggestion. I would go a little bit further. I think the gate is very well done. I don't like the way it doesn't match the rest of the fence in the front or the side on Fifth. I'd like to see you paint it, make it all congruent all the way around. And I'm looking at D here. It looks like there's some damage to the Fisk fence. So it looks like a board holding up, I don't know, a section. Is that still up there?
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Yes.
Well, our plan is to redo the fence a section at a time. I'm not a millionaire, I don't have a lot of money. So we're doing what we can as we can do it. But the whole fence is gonna, it will look all brand new eventually.
Okay, well, I can appreciate that. I'm not doing it either. Can we put that into our findings, staff?
You want to put what into the findings?
Well, if they're agreeable to, make that fence all look congruous there, certainly we have nothing but time we can give them if they can give us some kind of indication what they're looking at. Is it 2 years, 5 years?
Oh, I'm thinking like every month, I want to do at least a section at a time. I want it all to look good, but I just can't afford to do it all at one time.
And I can appreciate that. So,
Commissioner Stanziger, you could add a condition of approval that requires the fence be replaced within X amount of time, or the fence be painted within X amount of time. That could be a condition of approval.
Is a year good enough, Mr. and Mrs. Flaming?
That's perfect.
That's what we were kind of thinking, that hopefully by this time next year it would all be done.
Okay.
Well, if that's the case, then for the Flamings, do we even need to talk about removing the lattice work? I mean, if you're working on eventually removing the fence, why don't you just put the fence back? When you're putting the fence back, why don't you just put it back at the height that's required per code?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take the lattice down, and I'll just put out brand new boards. That's what I've been planning to do, because they're pretty worn out anyways, but they're ugly, and I want it to look good.
Well, and like she was saying earlier, that had those flowers that were going over it there. For when I bought the house, it had those flowers that were creepy crawly all over it, and it's just destroyed the fence. And so we've been, it's all kind of been in play. We've been planning this for like 3 years. It's just taken a lot of time to get to where we are, and that is part of it. As far as setting the code for future, we totally understand that. I guess what we're hoping is, since this fence has been there for 50 years, and it's not like down the street where he just put up a fence because he never had one before, I would hope that we might be able to pass the variance just on that. It's not a brand new house that we're trying to change things on. It's something existing for all these years.
Staff, is there a requirement in the municipal code that states how high gates can be?
I would have to go in and look. I would say it would just be similar to the fencing requirements, because you typically have fence and gates together. So fences up to 7 feet with no permit, up to 8 feet with a permit, no higher than 8 feet.
I would agree with that. I don't believe it's treated differently.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion on item A1 for the fence. It states that the setback from First Street property line remain as is at 2 feet 5 inches, with the condition that the fence be replaced within 1 year time frame back to 6 feet to match the municipal code requirement.
And I just want to clarify, this is Diana, the fence being replaced is along First Street and then up Fisk Street to the house. We're not going to talk about the north side of the house. This is just on the south side of the house, correct?
Correct, but I mean, just in listening to the Flamings, I bet you that they're going to replace the other side of the house to match, but that's at their prerogative. Right now, we're only concerned about what's along First and Fisk.
Sean, do you agree with taking off the corner?
I guess, Commissioner Willis, do we still need to take off the corner if we're lowering the height down to 6 feet?
Well, for a driver in a vehicle, they're not going to be able to see over 6 feet. It's still going to be in the way.
So how far back would you want to do it, considering the fence is already 22 feet back? So I guess I'm asking how much further you would want it to go. On Fisk, yes. It's 22 feet back from the sidewalk.
On that Fisk side, yes.
I can't speak for Commissioner Willis, but I think what she's saying is that if you go from the last post on Fisk to the first or second post on First and cutting off that corner, that will allow a line of sight down First.
So it would be 30 feet instead of 22 feet per se if we cut off one.
Well, but we're still considering the distance from First Street to the setback, or whatever you want to call it. But how many feet between posts? Is it 8 feet?
Yes.
So it's 8 and then 2.5, that's 10.5. You're still not at the 15.
No, it's 22 plus 8.
Yeah, we're not talking about from Fisk, we're talking about from First.
Oh, okay, I see.
I see.
I'm not sure if angling from a post, the first post to the first is going to take off enough, and that's why I said the first post on Fisk to the second or third post on First.
Well, if they're 8-foot sections, then you're talking about removing that up to 24 feet down First Street.
Yeah, or 16.
I don't think that would look right, Commissioner Willis, but.
Well, maybe just the first post on each corner then.
I would agree with that. I think that would at least be symmetrical.
Yeah.
Give it a 45-degree angle. That would look nice. And
it would increase the visibility a little bit anyway.
Yeah, anything would help.
I would concur with that.
Would that be agreeable to the Flamings?
So we would lose 8 feet on First and 8 feet on Fisk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right there. We'd move it over. Yeah, we could make that work.
Okay, so included in my motion is to, when the new fence goes in, have it at a 45-degree angle from the last post on Fisk to the first post on First.
Okay.
And I will, I'll second that motion.
Can you read that back?
Sure.
Excuse me?
So Commissioner Danziger, my motion is on item A, item number 1, I, setback from the south First Street property line to remain as is at 2.5 feet. Under the condition that the existing fence will be replaced within, we'll give you 18 months, how about that? Within 18 months, with new fence to be installed at 6 feet high to meet the municipal code, and the location of the fence will follow the same profile, stopping at the next to last post along Fisk, and will meet the second post along First.
No, I thought we said oh, sorry.
We said the first, but we're getting rid of the first, so now it becomes the second. So.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
We're saying the same thing, just semantics.
Yes, got it.
And are we removing the lattice on the current fence in the meantime?
That's the idea.
Okay. And that the existing lattice will be removed.
Yes.
Okay. was my motion.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Stroman. So we have a motion on item AI about the fence, and I will second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Great. So motion for the fence portion, item A, is passed 5-0. So now is structure 1, the wood shed, about the setback from the east on Fisk Street.
And we can go ahead and delete that one. That only applies when the fence was 8 feet tall, but now that they're gonna take the lattice off and eventually replace the fence at 6 feet, that fence is no longer considered a structure, so that setback does not apply. You can just delete B. You can just move on to C.
Okay, we don't need to.
Can I make a motion to remove item B from the conditions of approval?
So actually, do we need to do that, staff? Or can that just be struck from the record?
Do we need to vote on that?
We could just remove it, that's fine.
Take it out, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll just note it in the minutes.
Well, I think that was the quickest approval we ever had for an item as a planning commission.
Okay, so next item is item C, the structure number 2, the metal carport for their fifth wheel trailer. So the setback from the rear west property and the setback from the house and the allowed square footage. Could you remind us what the square footage of that is, staff?
Yeah, so I'll go through each one. So the setback from the rear west property line, they're requesting 1 foot. 2, setback from the house to the north, 3.5 feet. And the allowed square footage for that metal carport, 560 square feet. That's 14 by 40.
And the code says that it has to be, it cannot be in excess of 450 feet.
It doesn't say that it can't be more than 450 feet. It just says if it's more than 450 square feet, Planning Commission must approve it.
Okay. Just a note to staff, as fifth wheels get bigger, we may want to look at that square footage.
I agree, we're going to get a lot of these.
I would also note that this is a temporary structure, and although this is new to us and the code, that we also include in our findings that upon the sale of the property, the structure is removed.
Yes. That can be added as part of the condition, yes.
So, question for the Flamings, is structure 3 staying in place? Or are you taking the items that are in S3 in structure 3 and moving them into structure 1?
We're hoping to be able to utilize structure 3 because right now it's so full we can't walk into it. So we'll be putting some things in there, but that will be more of lawnmower and things for yard work, and maybe if we're painting the house, a couple things like that. Whereas the other one is more of our toys, our Christmas stuff, our camping stuff, all that.
Just want to friendly remind you guys that the first Saturday in October is yard sale day, and so you may want to be able to clear out some of your stuff.
That is the plan.
So they can just pay for their fence.
Well, I don't know if you're selling some of those 4-wheelers and items like that, it might create a crowd. So,
for sure.
I don't know.
So what is the, so right now it's being proposed at 3.5 feet from the house. What does the code say?
5 feet.
5 feet.
So that is where we are kind of stuck, because if we moved it forward to 5 feet, now we wouldn't be 15 feet back, and we were trying to keep it 15 feet back.
For access.
Well, we wouldn't really get anything through there.
Yeah. Yeah, and we wouldn't be able, it would take up more room that we wouldn't be able to get things through there.
Really, that 1'5" really throws it way off?
Well, it doesn't help. We don't have a lot of room to begin with, just because that trailer is so big and it comes out so far. It is a fifth wheel, and it just comes out so far. But again, if we move it to the 5 feet, now we're only 14 feet from the fence. I mean, from the sidewalk, instead of 15 feet.
So then I guess my question is to staff is, which is the more important figure? Is it the 15 feet off the sidewalk, or is it the 5 feet off of the house? What's more important?
That's a great question, and I don't really have an answer for you. They kind of address different issues. I think keeping the structure further away from the street and away from the fence looks better aesthetically for curb appeal, for people driving by, for pedestrians. It just looks nicer having it set back farther than having, how tall is it, 15 feet tall, closer to the street. But keeping the structure and the motorhome away from the house is more as a, I would see as more of a safety issue, better access, like you mentioned, fire department, if they were trying to get around that T of the house to the back, to the side where the pool is, more space between the structure and the house. Also, if the motorhome caught fire, you would want it farther away from your home, less chance that your house is going to catch on fire. So I guess more distance between the house is a safety issue, whereas farther away from the street is an aesthetic issue.
On the other hand, the gate only opens so far, so with the gate open, and if the structure was closer to the road, the pickup truck might not be able to get in alongside and nose in toward the house.
Yes. Also to note, we do have a gate on the other side too, so if fire department had to get into the pool side yard, there is access over there as well.
And you know, there's really nothing stopping them. I mean, let's just say structure number 2 is not there. There's nothing, and I see this all over town. There's nothing stopping them from putting their trailer 2 inches from their house gutter. So adding the structure, you know, from at least, I suppose, you know, at some point there's an access issue, but you know, like I said, I see this all over town, where the trailer is literally inches from gutters on a house. So I don't, you know, in my opinion, I would rather encroach on the 5 foot by a foot and a half if we're going to choose that. You know, the other thing is, you know, based over a 40-foot structure, if these are customizable, you know, is a foot and a half, making the structure a foot and a half shorter and having the tail end of it stick out a foot and a half, is that, you know, what's your thought on that?
And we'll have to check with the homeowners. Typically, the structure, like they're planning, they're kind of prefabricated. They come in set lengths. You get a 30-foot, a 40-foot. You probably can't get a custom 38.5-foot structure. I think they come in set sizes.
You guys just had to buy that 40-foot fifth wheel, didn't you?
That wasn't the plan. We were told it was a 32.
Oh, yeah, and then you walked away and Gary came in and said, no, I want the longer one. Give me the longer one.
No, it says 32 on the side, but when you measure it, it's 40. I don't know what it is, but we fell in love with it, and then we couldn't turn it away.
I see.
I know that feeling. 32 feet gets you into the state parks. Anything over that, they won't let you in. The way the virus is taking place right now, good luck going anywhere camping. I I set up 4 or 5 a year at Woodward, and Stanislaus is not allowing anybody outside the county to utilize that park or any park in Stanislaus County. So it's going to be interesting, all of us fifth wheel owners, and there's a bunch of us out there, what's going to happen. I'd like to take a shot at this. I'd like to, I wouldn't like to put any kind of restriction on the setbacks based on previous council determination, but I would like to add, and Gary said that he's already willing to do this, a gutter on the west side to support a gutter on the concrete, along with a gutter on the structure to send stormwater or any rainwater off their property out to First Street, or if they want to direct it to Fisk, I don't know. The structure will be known as temporary and removed with the sale of the property. And other than that, I make a motion that we accept it.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion as Commissioner Danziger outlined, and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passed on structure number 2, the metal carport, 5-0. So, I think lastly on this is item D, the accessory structure lot coverage at 16%. Additional accessory structures not permitted unless approved under a variance amendment. So the limit is 15%, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, that 1% really rubs me the wrong way.
After all this, that's our sticking point.
I have major heartburn over that 1%. Let me tell you. I'm kidding.
Since the fence is not 8 feet anymore, is that not an accessory building? And is that square footage taken off of that calculation?
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
We'll strike it.
Way to split hairs, Steve.
We could count the fence as 1%.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, way to split hairs.
Well, I mean, you know.
Especially when you can't get a haircut, right?
That's why I'm standing back, because I look like when I was in high school, getting there.
I don't think that, did you have gray hair and a gray beard in high school, Steve?
I quit using the mint stuff for a while ago.
Okay. So staff, is item D still applicable?
Item D is still applicable. Just go ahead and pass it. It's only 1%.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve the 16% in lieu of the 15% for the accessory structure lot coverage.
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion passed for item D, the lot coverage, 5-0.
And then, since you did those all one by one, we still need to approve the rest of the conditions. So you'll still someone will make the motion to make the findings. This is recommendation number 3. Make the findings as required for section 17.57030. Findings for variances. You can read number 3. Find the project CEQA exempt. Authorize staff to file the notice of exemption. And then you can make a motion, in that motion include approve the remainder of the conditions of the staff report.
Well, we still have the condition on the driveway and the packed bell box and whatnot. What was the decision on that?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, that's number 3. If you scroll down, unique to number 3.
traffic.
There you go.
Rated driveway.
Traffic rated driveway.
So is that something we could put a time limit like the fence of 18 months on?
Well, we could.
You could certainly give them a time to get it installed by. That's possible.
And in that time period as well, we'll reach out to Pacific Bell and see if that's something that they could take care of or not.
At minimum, I think we should be able to get them to take care of the box, but maybe we can work some magic and get
Right.
more.
And really, the condition just says it needs to be replaced. It doesn't say by whom. So if they have to do part of it or all of it, or if the city has to do part of it or all of it, or we need to change the wording?
It was intended to be by the homeowners. The city would not have responsibility for replacing the broken sidewalk. Sidewalks are responsibility of the homeowners. So the intent was for it to be replaced by the homeowner.
Yeah.
So, fellow commissioners, we know how sensitive sidewalks are these days. I don't know. I can't, in my good conscience, put this burden back on the Flamings. Those are just my thoughts. I mean, if the city can work some magic with, well, it was Pac Bell, then it was SBC, then it was AT&T, and whoever the heck they are these days, might just be a matter of putting a lid on, getting a lid, traffic rated lid. My fear is that we'll see Gary out there with a jackhammering the whole sidewalk out to replace this box that, quite honestly, well, when did Pac Bell go out of business? At least 15 years ago, so that box is at least 15 years old, so I don't necessarily think we should put that burden on them, but those are just my thoughts.
I think I saw a public works truck drive over that a few weeks ago.
I did too, actually. I saw, oh, never mind, I can't say this. This is a public meeting. I'll save that for my own comments later.
So staff, if we're not gonna make them responsible, how can we word that, or just?
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
You could,
When you open up your gate to take your fifth wheel out and put it back in, are you gonna run over that box?
Yeah. Isn't it too far over on the side? We don't run over the box, do we? I don't think we do. Can you pull up the picture again from El Pertel looking at the gate?
It's E. I'm going.
Right there. So I believe.
down a little bit more. The next picture down is zoomed in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right there. Where is it?
I go to drag and I highlight.
It's checked up the top.
Yeah, I believe it's within that first couple feet of the gate, which means we wouldn't be driving over it. I believe, but I could be wrong. I can't tell on here.
Yeah, I think it's right
It's
in this
right
area.
at the,
If you go down a
it's
couple,
right at the
Oh, yeah,
corner.
that's right.
go down a couple more.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to strike item 3 from the conditions of approval.
So right there, go back up.
Go back up a little bit.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
right there.
Like, go
on
down
the
just a
corner.
little bit. So you
It's
can
right
see
on
the
the,
fence.
butts up to the property line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
be
but I
running
think
it
the
over.
gate is that second line there in the concrete.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those issues that's gonna take care of itself, because no fifth wheel goes straight in. You've gotta go past the yard at some point and back it in. And you may or may not run over that box. And I don't know how strong the box is or how long it would be able to withstand that. But it, like I say, the situation, if that were the case, would take care of itself, and you wouldn't want to be running over a hole with your own equipment. So I would be in favor of the city contacting Pac Bell, see if they could move that thing at the very least, and if not, make it stronger.
And I'm sure it's quite old.
Hence the pack bell.
So Planning Commission, are you wanting to strike number 3 out of the conditions, and then it's just on staff to reach out to the telephone company and ask them what they can do for that?
That was my initial motion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then, like Commissioner Danziger said, if Beckville doesn't do anything about it, it's going to be homeowners will have to resolve it in that case. I mean, I kind of liken it to, you know, if tree roots are coming up under your sidewalk, it's up to the homeowner to repair it as a tripping hazard. And I mean, it's rough. Alpert House right across there too. I mean, that gets a lot of foot traffic. And my guess is this was probably damaged by those people making the illegal U-turns more than anything.
Parents parking on the sidewalk.
Just being old.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So we still have to do item number 3, item number 4, and number 5 to approve.
So I will make a motion to make the findings as required per section 1757.030, findings for variances, and 17.56.030, conditional use permits. Item number 4, we find the project CEQA categorically exempt per section 15303E, accessory structures, including garages, carports, and fences, and authorize staff to file a CEQA notice of exemption. And 5, approve the variance and conditional use permit application with conditions of approval as previously stated below. For the fence, we've eliminated item B, the setback for the wood shed. The setback requirements for the metal carport, and section D about the 16% lot coverage.
And removing item number 3.
Yeah, and removing the need for the tying the replacement of that pack bell box to this project.
And include all remaining conditions.
What was that, Kurt?
You have to include all the remaining conditions, standard conditions.
Oh, and including all the standard conditions.
Well, they're included in number 5.
I'll second that motion.
Already did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't hear that either. So we have a motion and 2 seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion passed 5-0. Certainly do want to, well, first of all, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Fleming. Appreciate the time and effort you've put to put this together and do the right thing. And just know, I mean, we do have to go through all these details, you know, so there's not people going around the city and putting up things that are dangerous for whatever reason. So appreciate your time and effort and patience, and I'm sure it'll look great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Staff, I have a question for clarification. On the blue page, it says this is application 20-721, and then on the white page, it says 20-723.
I knew you were going to do it.
That's a typo on the agenda. It's 2723.
723, okay.
I did the agenda this round, so that's why it's incorrect.
Before we move any further, Mr. Chair, can I bring something to the attention of the city manager?
Yes.
This is now the second time, actually in the last few months, that items such as illegal parking, illegal U-turns, et cetera, in a school zone has been brought to the attention of the Planning Commission. And so I understand, especially these days, the budgets are getting tighter, but very tight for that matter. Ms. City Manager, can we possibly look into how we deal with this as an issue throughout the city? Maybe painting of curbs. I don't want to definitely put burden on additional signage, but you know, here we are. We have homeowners coming to us making complaints, and our homeowners are willing to make accommodations for illegal parking and illegal turnarounds. But it would be nice if we could do something to assist them so that it can be more enforced. Those are just my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what we could do regarding signage or anything, but I will discuss it with the police chief and the public works superintendent.
I'm just wondering, could we paint the curbs yellow, kind of as a loading and unloading zone during drop off and pick up?
But that's not gonna eliminate or say no U-turn.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question for you, and this may not be the time to bring it up, but so I actually work at El Portal as well, and so I'm crossing that crosswalk all the time. I can't tell you how many times I've almost been run over, along with kids that have been walking with me from parents not paying attention. It's usually the ones that slam on the brakes to turn into El Portal. Is there anything that we can do about that, like maybe the lights like we have over by Big Boy, or something to make people more aware that kids are crossing right there? Because I'm not sure how we haven't lost a student yet.
It's definitely something we can look at. I don't know that it would happen right away, but it's something we can keep our eyes out for if there's some funding that comes up for those kinds of things. We did recently we replaced the lighting at the community center crosswalk on the highway there at Elizabeth, and we added some at Viking. So yeah, definitely something like that. That's perfect to let me know about. So if we see any funding that comes around, we can put in for that then.
Okay, I think it would be good. I know that stop sign over by our solar parking lot has helped somewhat, but people leaving that stop sign going towards Irwin, they fly.
It's a drag strip.
Yeah, so it's just something to bring.
Sure.
While we're talking about it, I thought I'll bring it up because I cross that crosswalk every day when we're not distant learning. Well, even with distant learning, I'm still going over there every day. But when school is in session, it definitely is something just to think about, even if it's just like the lights, like over by Devani's, to make people more aware.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, sorry, my lighting's not so good now. Moving on, we got administrative matters. Item number 3, consider an ordinance amending Escalon Municipal Code 17.41.140, accessory dwelling units, ADUs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you may be aware, this item, since our last update was approximately a year ago, has been updated again by the state of California. The state of California has mandated various laws to address the need for affordable housing. When we updated our ordinance in 2019, as required, it was to bring it up with state law, because if our ordinance was not brought up to state law, it would make our ordinance invalid, and we would be required to follow state law 100%. We did have additional laws passed January 1st, 2020, which once again made our ordinance invalid. So I did attach the letter from the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, which explains the amendments, and the amendments addressed along with the copies of the statutes and their attachments of the letter. There were key areas this round that the city still has some control of. The first one being efficiency kitchen counter and cabinet space size requirements. The state law says that food preparation counter and storage cabinets need to be of reasonable size in relation to the size of the accessory dwelling unit or the junior accessory dwelling unit. But this actually calls for the exercise of discretion, which state law is prohibiting. So the current suggestion that has been recommended from our legal counsel at this point in time, it's what other cities other cities that are making this decision are using, as well as, and it's a starting point because we're all trying to figure out how to do something without exercising discretion. It was to quantify the minimum counter space and cabinet space up front. So we're suggesting 15 feet of food preparation counter or counters, and then 30 feet for food storage, cabinets, shelf space, which would approximately be 7 linear feet of a standard depth counter with 2 levels of shelves in the same area each. And then in the future, if this doesn't work out for any future ADUs, we could come back to council and commission and have that adjusted. But it seems to be a reasonable recommendation that is working in most areas. Number 2 was no separate conveyance. Cities do have the option of creating a very limited exception to this, which allows a separate conveyance in special circumstances involving a nonprofit and long-term affordability restrictions pursuant to Government Code Section 65852.26. The draft that's included in here does not include this exception, but it can be added with Planning Commission's update. The only reason that it was not included is because at staff level, we don't see that ever happening in the future. And if it needed to happen, and the government code section was still applicable, we could easily go in and amend it to make it possible. So it's not included now, but it can be added in. The third one was deed restriction. Cities do have the option of changing or tweaking this in special circumstances, once again involving the nonprofit and long-term affordability restrictions as described in number 2. Also, the draft does not include this exception in there because we're anticipating it's not something that would happen anytime soon, but we could, because it's involving a nonprofit and long-term affordability restrictions, we can change it to reflect that in case it does happen in the future. Number 4, regarding lot coverage and open space percentages. For A, 65% is recommended for lot coverage maximum because it's consistent with the maximum lot coverage requirement in our municipal code for R1, which is low density residential. That's currently what our total maximum lot coverage requirement is. So it's reasonable that we would set it at the same amount. And then 50% is being recommended by staff for open space because it leaves a reasonable amount on the lot of open space. For open space, we're anticipating you're putting an ADU in your backyard. That, if we don't want it taking up more than 50% of the yard, you still want to have it maybe at least half of your yard available. That number can be increased or decreased accordingly. We were also looking at 35 at one point, so, or we could say maximum 50%, either way is fine. For number 5, rear yard setback area and impervious surfaces. Once again, recommending 50% proposed for the rear yard setback area because it leaves a reasonable amount of the rear yard setback area available. Now, the rear yard setback area, according to our code, starts at the back side or the back wall of the building. So everything is side yard until the building or the structure ends, and that's where your rear yard starts, and that goes all the way to your rear property line. And then 60% is proposed for the impervious surfaces, which take into consideration the entire lot. So your impervious surfaces or driveways, concrete, landscaping, those type of areas. Those are optional as well. We don't have to have those requirements. They're just areas in state code that we're currently being allowed to exercise as long as it does not affect HCD's or the state's requirement of the 800 square foot. I believe the minimum size is 800 square feet. As long as that is not affected by those, it would work out. And that is how our draft is written in there, and we can go and visit those highlighted areas once we're through this. Number 6 is on the utility fees, which the cities also do not have to require this, but they may allow an ADU to connect to and through the primary dwelling. However, staff recommends, because it's appropriate, that we have each unit provide their own separate gas, electric, water, and sewer connection. That benefits the ADU or property owner as well as the city, because if it's a separate building, they're most likely going to be renting it out separately and are most likely going to want to make the person who's renting it pay those bills separately. And so overall, it just makes everything a lot easier, smoother, and cleaner. And then at that case, because it's a separate building, we would give it its separate address to keep it consistent. So if you go to the actual draft ordinance, which is passing all of the information for HCD, and we get into the draft, I highlighted the areas that are listed in the staff report. So those food preparation counters which are at the 15 square feet area and 30 square feet of shelf space. I don't think those will pose any type of issues. The separate conveyance, as well as the deed restriction that we discussed, something that the planning commission can decide to add in or keep it as is in the draft. The lot size coverage, which is number F2, exceeding the 65%, and then the minimum open space is currently recommended at the 50%. Rear yard setback, and I don't know why it doesn't have this language attached to that, because it was originally. Let me find that section where it says 800 square feet. Should be right at the beginning here. That matches the 800, no more, that's a junior. Let's see here. I must have left it off my report here. There it is. Total floor area is 800 square feet or smaller. So as long as those numbers do not affect the 800 square feet, the person being able to construct an 800 square foot ADU, those numbers can be held. In most cases, I don't believe there'll be a problem, but we can adjust them accordingly. I mean, at this point, we're mostly trying to visualize what we're seeing for our town in the very, very specific areas that we've been given some flexibility on. In the meanwhile, we do anticipate, as the state continues to move forward, that they're going to keep or continue removing those flexibilities that we're currently allowed to have. And so we'll just have to update accordingly as we're moving forward. But these are the items that we're given at this time. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them for you.
I have a question, Dominique, but I don't think you can answer it. That is, when is the state of California going to get their act together when it comes to ADUs?
And that is definitely rhetorical. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, and we discussed it the last time we did this ordinance amendment. It's something that they're seeing in these much larger cities like San Francisco and Sacramento, where there's just not enough room for people. There's not enough affordable housing. There's lacking of housing. And instead of applying it specifically to places that actually, or leaving it to local government to address those issues, they're just blanketing over everyone statewide. You know, and obviously they do that with a lot of items. It's like, it's there, but it's just not applied beneficial to us being so small, but it's just one of those things that we just move forward with, so.
The only reason I ask, and yes, it was a rhetorical question, but I'm just trying to save you guys some time from having to constantly go back. And I mean, by the time this goes through city council and gets approval and then everything gets updated, then 2021 is going to come around and they're going to have another update and another update. And I mean, when does it end? And I don't think it ever ends, right?
No, it doesn't. I mean, and it's not just these items. This one has just really been a very, very hot topic because of the last few years and everything that's going on. I'm sure. I mean, we're updating other things as well, but this is just something that they're really, they've made it such a priority that it's just constantly discussed, constantly has additional legislation proposed. I mean, it just all the way around, it's just a big topic that hasn't sat still. And HCD recognizes that, as well as our legal counsel. And so they put out memos and they've helped us get everything situated. Like you'll see at this point, because so many things have been updated to meet state law, we didn't even take our existing ordinance that we updated last time and make edits to it. We just ended up creating a whole new one that meets state regulation. Because at this point, it's just easier to take what the state gave us and turn that into our new code as opposed to going back and trying to adjust our own. So cleaner and easier at this point in time.
Well, I'm sorry they're creating more work for you guys.
Thank you.
Certainly agree. You know, with these percentages and stuff. So say whenever we do get one of these, if we ever do, and it doesn't meet some of those requirements, would that be an individual variance based on all of those?
No, we are not allowed to apply any type of discretionary action on an ADU. So if they don't meet it, they would just be told no. And then at some point, we would need to figure out whether or not we have to update it, or we would have to go back to state law and figure out if there's another or different interpretation through HCD that would allow for us to accept it if it didn't meet that language. Basically, we're allowed this flexibility at this time, but if it came up and was prohibiting somebody from creating the ADU, then state law would take effect, and if there was if there were numbers used by them in cases that they've dealt with or anything like that, those would probably be applied, is how I've understood things. If they have some type of template or they've created something by then that works for it, we would need to use what they have.
Okay, thank you.
Wouldn't it just be easier if the fallback position on all of these is state law? Wouldn't it create less work and less headaches for city staff just to say, follow state law when it comes to ADUs? and let state law change
You
and
have to
modify
have
things.
written in code.
I mean, it would, but they haven't actually set numbers in these areas yet because they're allowing for that flexibility, but I'm sure the time would come, like, if you don't have any numbers at all, it doesn't apply is how I've understood. So if we don't have something adopted in the code that gives, you know, the sizing for the shelf space or the rear yard setback area, and we don't have a number specifically in our code to go by, then it doesn't apply, and we would just probably have to approve it unless it was something that the city or staff really had an issue with. We would probably need to contact HCD and get some type of opinion from them. Luckily, we don't get too many of these. But
I'd like to chime in. I'd like to thank you, Dominic, for all the work you and your staff have done on this. It's onerous. I don't have a problem with your recommendations. I think at some point the state's going to require that you have X amount of ADUs, and that's when you have to have this stuff in place. If you go to the memorandum, and I guess it would be the second page of the memorandum, the 9th bullet down, it allows upon application and approval an owner of a substandard ADU 5 years to correct the violation if the violation is not a health and safety issue as determined by the enforcement agency. What a stupid thing to say. 5 years? Of course it's going to be a health and safety issue. So not a lot of thought's gone into these things, and it's just perfunctory to have all of this in a code section, but it really doesn't apply until the state comes down and says, you've got to have X amount of these ADU units. What would be better served, in my opinion, would be the state to purchase land in whatever areas there and coordinate building these low-income houses in areas that could meet all of the transportation needs and what have you. And instead of putting them on a city like Escalon, where it's just onerous, we don't really have anything that's going to violate this stuff. I think we've had one ADU over on Roosevelt.
I think we've had two, and we have one that's kind of in process right now, so we'll have 2 on Roosevelt pretty soon.
Okay. Well, unless there's a lot of other discussion, I'd like to go ahead and approve the amendment, given staff's recommendation on this, what word is here? Recommendations to the City Council amending provisions of EMC 17.41.140.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion about the ordinance amending Escalon Municipal Code 1741-140 as accessory dwelling units, passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, good job on that. I know it's, I'm sure it's very tedious, especially when the state is so vague and then requiring you to do something about it.
Yeah. Or telling you not to be discretionary, but you have to show discretion, because there's really no other way to set a number unless you show some type of discretion, so.
Yeah.
And for the record, Mr. Chair, I would like to apologize for my little rant to the constituents. I just see Dominique and Diana and the city staff constantly jumping through hoops because our state legislature can't get their act together.
Yep. Duly noted and agreed. Okay, moving on, number 4, nominate and select Commissioner Chair for FY 2021.
So these items were added to the agenda because at this time, it is not foreseen that we will have a meeting in June. So the commission at this time, since all 5 of you are present, can opt to select or nominate your chair and vice chair at this meeting. That way they're available for the July meeting. Or you can choose to continue it to the next meeting, which will most likely be in July, and it would be addressed at the beginning of that meeting. We just didn't want it to fall off the radar, as well as, we do kind of have an established pattern where, everybody kind of takes turns with chair and vice chair, so it can be done. But if the commission is not comfortable with that, both of these items can be continued to the next agenda.
Okay, well, I'm very comfortable nominating Vice Chair Constellanos for Commission Chair for FY 20 and 21.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
I'm gonna abstain. I'm not gonna self-incriminate myself.
Okay, so item number 4 is passed 4-0 with 1 abstain.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
And, anything to add to that, Dominique?
No, unless anybody else, it's passed, so you could move on to vice chair if you like.
Okay, good. Okay, so number 5, nominate and select commission vice chair for FY 20 and 21.
And there could be
I have a
more
question.
than one nomination, and we just take a vote on each of them.
So I have a question for staff. Whose turn is it on the wagon wheel?
I believe that would be Ms. Willis.
I can
Mr.
neither
Chair.
confirm nor deny that.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to select Commissioner Willis with her 20-plus years of experience as the Planning Commission Vice Chair for fiscal year 2021.
I would second that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 I have no problem voting for myself.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passed 5-0. Congratulations, Commissioner Willis.
All right.
Thank you.
So how many years is it, Commissioner Willis?
Let's see, 93 to now. So what is that?
27.
27.
27. In July, I'll be 27.
And for you,
Boy, I
Commissioner
think
Castellanos?
Sean Thurman has been alive.
We got a ways to go, Sean.
Mark, we're only 23 more years to go. We're almost there.
I was a lot less great at that point.
Commissioner Castellanos, how about you?
Well, I first went on when Ed Alves and Gary Haskin were on the Planning Commission.
Wow.
And I took a sabbatical for 2 years because I found out that I could make at that time $35 a meeting, or I could get off the Planning Commission. I lost my job at the bank. We got sold. I could be an independent appraiser, and I could make 4 years salary doing one job for them. So Well, I got back on, so I got off in 95, and I got back on. When did you start, Barb?
93.
93.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, so I stepped off. So I was gone part of your time then. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I was gone for 3 years, and then I decided to come back. So that's been a long time.
Well, thank you both for all of your,
you know, lots of changes.
thank you both for your dedication to the city of Escalon.
Yeah, who would have ever have thought? Who would have ever have thought we'd be doing it virtually, right?
Yeah.
Really? Well, who would have thought you'd make millions of dollars selling toilet paper? I was collecting baseball cards thinking I'd be rich, you know, not toilet paper. But, hopefully this is going to end soon.
I'm just waiting for the item to come before the planning commission for the Dave and Barb Willis statue to go up at the community center someday. That's what I'm wondering. All right, back to the agenda. Sorry.
Okay.
All the time.
Yeah, can we move along?
Yeah, so let's see. So matters presented for the audience. This time, any public may address the Planning Commission on any non-agenda-sized item that is within the authority of the Commission. Speakers limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. Determination of whether an item is within the authority of the Commission is a discretionary decision made by the Commissioner Chair. Is there anybody remaining in the audience that would like to present anything? Okay, with that, we have no presenters. So moving on to staff communications.
I don't think I have anything at this time. I'm trying to think. All of our staff has returned to City Hall this week. So after a month of not seeing Diana and Jenny, or 6 weeks, we all look the same. That's been great because it was, you know, not bad working remotely, but much easier and more efficient when all of us are together to be able to throw everything at each other. And Diana and I are good at yelling at each other from our desks, so we miss that. We miss that. So, a couple items that have come up at council level was the status of Big Boy. It is, the last update we got was that the close of escrow is supposed to happen sometime in June, and then they will need to go through the process to obtain their building permit and some improvements that need to be done to that property to move forward with that. So that would be moving forward once they obtain ownership. It is posted. They do have some signage posted at the door that we've seen passed around town. So it is more aware that everybody's noticing that somebody intends to move in there. We did close planning applications the first week of May. We did receive 4 applications. Those are currently being reviewed with our Planning Commission committee, and we should have that figured out and taken care of by the end of next week. We're hoping to get it on the June meeting. But since at Planning Commission level we won't have a June meeting, there's not a press to get it done. It might go on the second meeting in June, but we're intending to have it done on the first meeting of June with council. So hopefully that will be moving forward. And that is all I have at this time. Diana, do you have anything?
This is Diana. Nope, I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dominique and Diana. Commission communications? How about, who's up? I'll roll the dice. Commissioner Danziger.
I'm just glad everybody is here and safe, and I wish everybody continued that. I'm not sure how other projects around town, like Lears, are phasing out if they're affected by this virus, that kind of thing. So that would be my input.
Okay, thank you. Going across my screen, Commissioner Stroman.
Just giving city staff a heads up, and man, I hope you guys aren't staring at my bald spot, because my computer always freezes up right at the wrong time, so I'm looking down, but I can see all of you real time. But just giving city staff a heads up, that I'm currently working with a public owner, and because of COVID-19, there we go, and this may affect you as well, Commissioner Sarkozy, in your professional life, that for projects moving forward, any project moving forward, that public entities are not to be treated, or anything cost related to COVID-19 should not be included as a separate line item when bidding projects, because it's the interpretation, and I'm sure this is going to change, but right now it's the interpretation that the cost of implementing any COVID-19 procedures, whether that's social distancing, installing barriers, gowns, masks, whatever, that general contractors are instructed to treat that just as any other cost of doing business. So that being said, and especially in the Bay Area, what's happening now is as contractors are required to have a third-party COVID-19 inspector on their projects. So you'll probably start to see an increase in construction costs to account for COVID-19 implementation as we move forward. So don't let a contractor try to hit you with a change order whenever it's honestly just it's been a legal interpretation that it's just a cost of doing business in construction these days. Only other thing that I wanted to say was thanks to the city staff for once again a well thought out, well put together agenda. Our first item, there was a lot of information to digest, and I think that we put together a happy medium that satisfies both the homeowner and satisfies city staff. So thank you to Diana and Dominique for once again putting together a great agenda.
Thank you.
Sure. Last item is, Tammy, I don't know if you're aware or not, but there is definitely some chatter going on in the Facebook world these days about increased crime happening as a result of COVID-19 throughout our city. And poor Walt is there defending the city, but just giving you a heads up in case no one brought it to your attention already.
It was discussed last night at the council meeting.
Okay. And to kind of go along with what Commissioner Danziger said, it's great to see all of you and hear all of you, even if it's virtually, although I'd much rather be at City Council chambers, so hopefully we'll be there sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Castellanos.
Lots of thoughts. I find these meetings really enlightening, because initially when I read this project, I had some real doubts on if this thing would have moved forward or not. And through the discussion and the input from the owner, you know, my mind was changed, and I think that's kind of a, you know, that's kind of a good thing. On the flip side, the special feel of Escalon was kind of demonstrated tonight when several neighbors, and in one aspect, a neighbor that a person that didn't even live in close proximity to the project, you know, spoke out in favor of it. And I mean, you know, we have a pretty special community here, and sometimes I think people lose, you know, that sense just because, you know, we want to be like the person or the place next door down the street. And you know, we have a special community. I came from Santa Clara, where there was all cherry orchards when I was growing up, and that doesn't exist anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to be on the planning commission, is to have an input and an impact and an influence how in the direction that this city grows. And you know, the city's done a great job. The staff, you know, they amaze me on how hard they work, and you know, the late hours they, you know. So anyway, thank everybody for a great job. Thank the commissioners. It's been great working with all of you. And congratulations, Mark, passed the baton. Yeah, I know. I don't know how many times it'll be the chairperson. But that's all I really have. Oh, one other thing. For staff, several months ago, I gave up my zoning book to get it updated. Do you know when I'm going to get that back? I heard a laugh.
I know, yeah. I'm laughing because I didn't know you had turned it in. So I'll check with Jenny or Diana. Do you know?
Well, I gave it to Jenny. I don't know how many. I mean, you know, this you know, COVID thing is like. I mean, you know.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get it, to make sure we get it back to you. I can have it delivered to your house. We'll make sure it's up to date, and then we'll deliver it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering when I was going to come get back, because I was looking for it the other day, and I thought, well, oh yeah, the city has it. That's all I have. Oh, one more thing. Well, Kurt, I put in a circulation pump, and I don't know what took me so long, but what a difference. You know, a minute, 30 seconds, turn it on, you got hot water. So I appreciate the suggestion.
Should be part of all new construction. Saves water, saves energy.
Yeah. I highly recommend it. Best thing money could buy. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Willis.
Well, thank you to staff, thank you to commissioners, and I love it when we have an audience. That was really nice tonight to have people. Steve, we put in fake grass, and we save water like crazy.
It looks nice too. I noticed it when I went to deliver to your house on Friday. So that was recent, huh? Because I was thinking, was it here this whole time and I never noticed?
No, Dave had heart surgery, and he wasn't supposed to be mowing the lawn, and I don't want to mow the lawn, so fake grass. And so it's wonderful.
Yeah, it looks great, and your cat was enjoying it too. I saw her or him laying on it when I pulled up.
It's not 100
okay,
degrees.
thanks. What's that?
I said it's not 100 degrees out there yet. The
No, that's true.
Hot.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for vote of confidence, making me vice chair, Sean, and see you guys next time.
Yeah, great, thank you. So, sorry for the blender in the background. It's a smoothie, not a margarita. No, it's going into today's too, reading the report, I thought the same thing. It's like, this isn't our problem. Go store your motorhome. But it does feel good to come to a good compromise, and I think in my mind everybody came out of this happy. So also want to thank everybody for giving me the gavel for the past year. It's certainly a learning experience for me at times. Certainly enjoyed it. So thank you for that, and just echo what everybody else has said about this staff. They put together a great presentation every week or every month. So if I don't mention it, it's not because you didn't. It's just because it's the norm. So thank you very much, everybody. And I think I did see early on. I did see, I think, Tammy in person, and I think I saw Jenny in person also at Marvell's. So maybe in another 2 months we see each other face to face. So thank you, everybody. Okay, I guess with that, we are ready for adjournment at 9:51. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
This conference is no longer being recorded.